Cztery oczy, ojojoj.
A monochrome tale of love and exile in Cold War. French comic talents prepare to sink or swim, and the Scream Queen herself is back as Jamie Lee Curtis returns to our screens in Halloween. That's all coming up in this week's film show. And to find out more, Emma Jones joins me. Thanks.
Hello.
For being here, Emma. Hi. Now we're starting with a film from Pawel Pawlikowski. The director had a Best Foreign Language Oscar for his previous film, Ida, and rave reviews. This latest release is called Cold War. It's a very personal story for him, actually inspired by his own parents. How does Cold War compare to the success of his previous film?
Oh, this is another beautiful film, and the Cannes Film Festival this year, I think, agrees. It competed and it won him Best Director, which was really well deserved. Now, this is a brief and brutal love story. Brief because it runs at 85 minutes, which I think you'll agree at the start of award season for award season films is incredibly short for this kind of movie. And it's the story of the passionate affair between Zula and Victor. Now, Victor's played by Thomas Kotz, and I have to give a special mention to Zula, played by Joanna Kulig. She is absolutely fantastic in this movie. It's set in post-war Poland, just as the regime is putting together a folk troupe, basically, to go around the country, perform for the Communist Party's upper echelons and visiting dignitaries as cultural propaganda for Poland. Now, inevitably, they end up in Berlin, and the chance will come to slip across the wall and to defect. Now, will both of them take this opportunity? And even if they do, will their love survive in political freedom?
Well, to find out, you do have to watch the film, but we did catch up with Pawel Pawlikowski when he was in Cannes, and here's what he had to say about the artistic choices he made for Cold War.
I actually originally thought it might be better to do it in color, especially after Ida, which was so black and white. And Poland in the late 40s, 50s was pretty grey, so any kind of color would be kind of an arbitrary choice, you know. So then we kind of treated black and white as a color, you know, and I think at the end of the film you don't quite remember that it was in black and white.
Now, as you can see there, some of the scenes are set in Paris in the 1950s, and they are wonderful scenes, as I'm sure you will agree.
Yeah, and her singing is amazing in those jazz clubs, smoky jazz clubs of the 1950s.
Absolutely. What for me is a standout feature of the film is the choir scenes, you know, back in Poland as well, which were choreographed by this director himself. And you mentioned earlier that it is based on his parental love affair, which I'm not sure is necessarily a compliment, to be quite honest with you, because it's incredibly fiery and very intense all the way through. I think that you want to see this film really to ask yourself the question, what does it take for love to be truly free? Because sometimes just, you know, political freedom is not enough for an affair to thrive.
It's a very compelling love story. Now we're moving to a French film now, which is either about municipal sports facilities or the male midlife crisis, depending on how you see it, a crisis of masculinity. In French, it's called Le Grand Bain. In English, it's called Sink or Swim. This was another screening at Cannes, but out of competition this time. What's it about?
Oh yes, the male midlife crisis, essentially finding its therapy in synchronized swimming. But it's actually a surprisingly popular theme this year, because a couple of months ago, the UK had a film called Swimming with Men, starring Rob Brydon, out. And I think both of these films were inspired by a 2010 Swedish documentary entitled Men Who Swim. So Le Grand Bain is directed by Gilles Lelouch, and he has a suitably all-star cast. There's his usual collaborator, Jean Canet. We also have Mathieu Amalric and Virginie Efira and Leila Bekti playing swimming instructors. So all the guys who turn up are basically in a really sad way in their mid-40s. Their personal lives are in crisis. And over the course of the film, of course, these crises are somewhat alleviated by taking part in male bonding and competitive sports. It's extremely watchable. And one of the star turns has to be Layla Bekti's character, Amanda, who is quite terrifying as an instructor. Let's take a look at the film.
Est-ce que vous croyez, là? C'est comme ça que vous allez gagner?
On veut juste participer.
Pardon, j'ai pas entendu.
On veut juste participer.
Participer, fils de pute!
Ah, ça va pas!
Ça va pas quoi?
Rien, rien.
Non, non, arrête de rigoler, vous allez tous vous mettre en tenue, on va aller courir!
J'ai pas mes habits pour courir, là. Oh, on s'en fiche.
Well, inevitably, this is all going to come to a head in some kind of competition where they find themselves the underdogs. I have to say, this is good, clean, chlorinated fun.
Terrifying indeed, synchronized swimming. Well, it's that time of the year, seasonally. Halloween, for some people that does mean sweet treats courtesy of knocking on your neighbours' doors. But for us movie fans, of course, it means the movie of the same name. And that's back. Halloween is back on the big screens. How many times is it now?
Oh, it's about 11. The original Halloween, for those who may not know, is exactly 40 years old. It was first out in 1978, and it was created by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill and starred a very young Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, the only babysitter in town who managed to escape the slasher blade of demented serial killer Michael Myers. The film spawned many copycats, many sequels, and nobody could really look at a pumpkin lantern in quite the same way again. Now, this Halloween ignores all the sequels that have come before and just moves directly after the first one, 40 years later. Jamie Lee Curtis is channeling her inner Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, basically. So there's lots of scenes of her in a vest, shooting guns. She's a bit of a paranoid wreck because she believes that Michael Myers is going to come back for her.
You would?
Yeah, and what is the betting that Michael Myers is in fact going to escape the mental institution in which he is incarcerated and indeed go on a killing spree?
OK, well, let's take a look. Here's a clip of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode in the 2018 version of Halloween.
Where's Ray? Michael's here. Get downstairs. Go, baby, go!
And Jamie Lee Curtis has been talking to France 24's culture editor, Eve Jackson, and she mentions how timely this film is in the post-Me Too era.
The new movie explores what happens to someone when they get no help. In today's world, the idea of women trying to take back what happened to them and rewrite the narrative and say, that's what happened to me, that is the past, but this is going to be my future. And my future is that I am not a victim of you. I control this because I can take it back from you. And it's a great example that we're seeing throughout the world, and yet this movie was written before the Me Too movement.
Oh, as you can see there, Jamie Lee Curtis, very compelling in the interview and great in the film too. A couple of problems I have with the film, just minor niggles really. It's directed by David Gordon Green. He did, amongst others, Pineapple Express, co-written by comedy actor and writer Danny McBride. Now, that makes for some fun times in this movie, but I sometimes feel that it's a little bit formulaic. Yes, there's lots of blood. Yes, there's lots of screaming, but there's also a lot of pretty girls and a bit too much running through the woods. You know, it does feel a little bit formulaic for my liking when you think about horror films in 2018, but it's done brilliantly at the US box office, 80 million in its opening weekend.
Not bad at all. Now, you can get the inside track on the film Halloween and its leading lady here on France 24 in that interview with Jamie Lee Curtis, which we broadcast on the day itself, October 31st, and that's also on our website. Now, we're finishing off with a film that shouldn't prompt any nightmares. It's a lot nicer. A new cinematic version of the much-loved children's book, Winnie-the-Pooh. Disney were quick to seize the opportunity to make this film. It's called Christopher Robin, the little boy who befriended those characters. characters.
Yes, this is indeed a Disney film directed by Mark Forster, and I love this film because of its fuzzy warmth and also the basic truth that adults are far too quick to let go of what is precious in life. So this is live-action Disney, and Ewan McGregor plays a very human Christopher Robin who grows up and becomes a seriously dull workaholic. He is married. His wife is played by Hayley Atwell. He has a child who he ignores. Clearly, this man is in desperate need of saving. And what is the betting that all the animals of the 100-acre wood, so Pooh, Eeyore, Piglet, the whole lot of them turn up to cause chaos and generally save him. There's some great CGI. The animals are completely believable. It really reminds me of Paddington in that sense, the way that
Which
the
was
character...
hugely successful.
Yeah, absolutely hugely successful. I love, personally, the fur-loved-off look of these characters. They very much resemble the original toys created by A.A. Milne. And the other shameless tug on my heartstrings comes from the litany of Poohisms in this movie, such as, people say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing every day. So at the end of the day, don't watch it for Ewan McGregor, just watch it to be filled with optimism and joy, I hope.
A true teddy bear philosopher. Emma
Yeah.
Jones, thanks so much for joining us. That sounds like the perfect antidote to all the terror and gore of Halloween. Now we'll leave you with a clip of some of the stars of the 100-Acre Wood and their human friend, Christopher Robin. Remember, you can get more movie news, arts and culture on our website, and you can keep up with Encore on Facebook and Twitter too. Stay with us here on France 24 for more news coming up in just a moment.
I can't see you moving and talking.
But why?
Because you're different. And people don't like things that are different.
So I shouldn't be me.
No, you should always be yourself.
No, this is very confusing. It may be the hunger.
You've just eaten.
Oh, that's right. Maybe I didn't eat enough.
Look, never mind about that. For now, just try and be a less exuberant you.
Exuberant?
Flop. Sag. Go limp.
Flop.
Yes.